Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Mark Salinger, joined today by Mayor Mike Johnston, Mayor of Denver. Thanks so much for being here with us and for speaking with us. I want to start with homelessness and the audit that was released yesterday by the auditor's office. There were a lot of problems, it seems like, that were discovered. Things like host not keeping track of how much money was being spent at shelters. Things like security services not keeping people safe that led to deaths at the shelter system. How do you view this audit?
Yeah, we view it as important. These are recommendations we've taken seriously and the recommendations we have already been working on. I've said to my staff, it's a little bit like seeing an audit that says we recommend the Broncos, get rid of Nathaniel Hackett and Drew Lock and look for a long-term quarterback and a long-term coach. We knew that 2 years ago. We knew that a year ago. We've been acting on these. Some of these are findings from 2022, even before I became mayor. But what we knew was, yes, we absolutely wanted to focus on safety. We've made real dramatic changes to safety at the sites. We've had no major security incidents since then. We were very focused on transparency and spending. We've done many public budget hearings, as you know, and we've now cut the budget on homelessness going into next year by $84 million. So we're both showing we can deliver better services at lower costs with more accountability, and that's exactly what we want to deliver.
You see these suggestions as things you've already implemented?
These are things we've already the safety changes we were on 10 months ago. We had the same concerns. We didn't think there were adequate safety precautions with some of the providers we had, so we stepped in, we took over those sites, we put these safety protections in place, and we haven't had major security incidents since then.
Do you regret things like not keeping track of how much money is being spent at shelters, or is that kind of just part of the growing pains when you're trying to start a program like this that's totally new?
Yeah, some of these budget transparency requests were 2022, which were before I came into office. I think we've been real clear, and the council's been clear on wanting to see line by line where the expenditures are, and we've presented all that to them publicly, so we think all that is clearly available. And yes, we've definitely found places for improvements. We found places where we can save money on contracts, where we can spend less, where we can spend smarter. So we think we've had a good partnership with the council on that, and again, I think that's reflected in us spending $84 million less next year and still having a goal to house more people next year than we did last year. That's going to be, I think, a great success for us.
I want to switch to immigration now. Donald Trump has said that he will deport hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people from across the United States when he takes office in January. I want to get your thoughts on deportations. Are there deportations that you support and those that you do not? Are there certain people that are in Denver right now that you say, yes, they should be deported? What is your line where you say, yes, I support these deportations, and no, I don't support these other ones?
Yeah, I think our line is clear. We think if you are a violent criminal that is committing serious crimes like murder or rape in Denver, you should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law and you should be deported. We support that. We have always supported that. We'll continue supporting that. We've worked with previous administrations on that. We will do it going forward. But let's be clear, that's not actually what the president is talking about. He's, I have to take him at his word when he says, I'm going to try to deport 12 million people, and I will use the U.S. military to do that. We have never seen that in this country before. And 12 million people, that's 60% of those are currently working on the job today. 25% of those are children. Those are people that never have had a speeding ticket in their life. They are here working hard, trying to pay taxes, get status, play by the rules. And so I do not think anyone in America believes that that's what they've signed up for, but I have to take the president at his word when he says that's what he plans to do.
So let's take the president at his word. He said that he's willing to use the military to take out these deportations, to come into places like Denver especially and deport people. What happens if the military comes in? What does Mayor Mike Johnston do?
Well, I think if that were to happen, I think that would be illegal, that would be immoral, and that would be un-American. I mean, you're talking about U.S. soldiers who should be coming back to their hometowns as heroes, not coming back as captors. But yeah, if you were talking about putting the U.S. military out on streets to take 14-year-old girls out of a 9th grade history class and arrest them, or to come to a baseball game and pick up someone's mom and dad while they're watching a game, or to come to your King Soopers and pull folks out of line, I don't think any U.S. soldiers signed up to do that, nor do I think that it's illegal for an American president to ask them or require them to do that. And so we hope that is not going to be the plan, but we'll try to be prepared in every way we can to protect the residents here and to uphold the law, which we think that would clearly be in violation of.
So the future commander-in-chief of the U.S. military has said that is what he plans to do. How is Denver preparing for that? You've told other news outlets in the past couple of days that you were willing to send Denver police officers to the county line and say, the military isn't allowed to come in here, our police force will stop you. Are you willing to do that?
Yeah, I want to be clear. We have no plan for armed conflict with the federal government. We have no desire to do that. There is no interest, and we have no plan to do that. What we are worried about is if we take him at his word that the plan is to use the U.S. military and to deploy them into cities to round people up. We think that is illegal and immoral, and it's un-American, and we would do everything we can to resist it. We'll look at legal options. We'll look at ways that we can mobilize people civically. We'll look at civil disobedience. All those are options. We have no plan to get in military conflict. We have no desire to do that. But we do think that the threats that he's made are serious, and we think people should take them seriously.
You would encourage people to protest?
I think we're going to look at every option, but yeah, I don't think that there are, I talked to some high school kids this week who were terrified about this. I don't think those kids are going to stand there and watch 3 of their classmates get pulled out of a history class with the other 27 stand by and do nothing. I don't think that's what Denverites or Americans would do in this context at all. I mean, I look at the last time we had this conversation as a country was the internment of Japanese Americans in World War II. That's been an absolute stain on this country for 80 years. And I think everyone that was a part of it said that was a mistake, and that was in a time of war. There is no time of war here. These are people that are going to school and working on jobs. I don't think any Americans signed up for that to be what the next year of this country looks like.
These comments that you made earlier this week invoking Tiananmen Square, saying that Denver police officers will be at the county line to stop, they're out there. So I want to make sure that we nail down exactly what you perceive as a potential future for how to handle this situation in Denver. I want to just ask you very specifically, are you open to sending Denver police officers to the county line to stop federal forces or National Guardsmen from other states from coming into Denver?
We have no plan to do that, and we really hope that we don't ever have to do that. I think
no plan, but are you open to it?
What we're going to do right now is, it's hard to keep an eye on what the future president actually plans to do and what the proposal actually is. Some people think it's just focusing on violent criminals. If it were just a strategy to focus on deporting violent criminals, we would be ready partners to work on that. We do that currently with the previous administration. We do it with the future one. If the plan really is to round up women and children out of workplaces and school buildings and public hospitals and grocery stores, I think that there are a lot of residents in Denver and around the state and around the country who would say that's not my America, and I wouldn't tolerate that. So do I expect people would civilly disobey? I think they probably would. The same people that came to provide services to folks who were struggling, I think would also not stand by to watch them, their rights be violated. So we have no plan to do that, no desire to do that, but I think we're trying to prepare every possible scenario based on what could happen.
So I want to ask you one more time about that. Would you be willing to do what you said in sending the Denver Police Department to the county line to stop federal forces or other National Guardsmen from coming in?
Yeah, I think we're at the beginning of this process right now. This is a
you don't want to answer that
well,
question.
No, but the thing is, what my job is to provide the best possible service to every resident of Denver at the least risk to them and the least risk to the rest of the country. So that's what we want to do. So we have to figure out every option we could exhaust to do that, and I think there are a lot of ways. There are legal challenges. We're talking to legal representation locally and nationally. There are statutory changes we could make at the city level or at the state level. There are community leaders we can mobilize and civil resistance that is possible. There are all sorts of options. You think about in any major challenge like this, you have to look at every option. But I think the most effective movements for social change in this country have been nonviolent, right? The civil rights movement didn't need an army. They needed to be on the right side of history. I think we're going to be on the right side of history on this.
It sounds to me like you're walking back the comments from a couple days ago saying that you would be willing to send Denver police officers. Do you regret making those comments and now getting questions like this, me asking you about that? And I'm sure Denver police officers are also going home to their families and saying, hey, I heard the mayor is telling you that you might be deployed to face off against federal forces. Do you regret making those comments?
Yeah. What I wanted people to understand was the scale of what could be coming if we take the president at his word. Which is, I don't think anyone envisioned U.S. military troops being deployed in American streets to gather up women and children. But if that happens, I think it'll be a much more dramatic scene than people anticipated. That's what I was trying to establish. Would I have taken it back if I could? Yes, I probably wouldn't have used that image because that's an image I hope we can avoid. What I was trying to say is this is an outcome I hope we can avoid in this country. I think none of us want that. There is no North High School grad who signed up to be an Army Ranger who wants to come back to his hometown and round up his former high school students. No one wants to do that. So I think our purpose was to make the case that's what we want to avoid, but I certainly did not mean to stoke fear on either side of the line.
You talk about civil disobedience. You've mentioned that
Yeah.
a couple of times now. Would you be willing to participate in those as the mayor of Denver? Would you be willing to go out and protest these things?
I would. If I believe that our residents are having their rights violated, if I think things are happening that are illegal or immoral or un-American in our city, I would certainly protest it, and I would expect other residents would do the same.
Trump's new borders czar, Tom Homan, has said that he is willing to arrest leaders like yourself for standing in the way of these policies that they want to enact. Would you be willing to go to jail for these things?
Yeah, I'm not afraid of that. And I'm also not seeking that. I think the goal is we want to be able to negotiate with reasonable people how to solve hard problems. Republican and Democratic presidents in the past have all tried to find solutions to these problems. President Reagan helped people get access to work so they could stay and support themselves. Biden and Harris worked on restricting entry at the border to close down. There are a lot of ways to approach this problem. We don't think it has to come to this. But yeah, I think when you look at, Ralph Carr has always been one of my heroes. He was the governor who in the middle of the internment of Japanese Americans said this was the wrong thing to do. And he stood up. It was unpopular. People were mad at him about it. That was in the middle of a wartime. If the president or any of his actors are going to do things that we think are illegal or immoral or un-American, we'll stand up against those.
You've been in politics and public service for a while. Does this feel like we're at a turning point? Are you setting yourself up to be part of the resistance against the future president of the United States?
I don't view this as setting up to be part of the resistance. My job as mayor is to support and protect all 720,000 people who live in the city, and to make sure we enforce the law without fear or favor, right? That we're going to make sure that everyone is entitled to the rights the Constitution says they are entitled to. And so that's our job, and I think there are times in all of our work where what you believe is morally or legally correct is in conflict with someone else, and when you do that, you have to stand up for the things you believe in. We'll do that, but I think there's a way to do that that matches the values of a great majority of Americans who say, yes, we think there are a small number of violent criminals who've committed crimes who should be eligible for deportation. That's true, and I don't think anyone believes that there are people who are on the job today or in a high school history class today or taking their kids to the hospital today that should be rounded up and deported from those locations when they've never committed a crime.
You said multiple times that the city of Denver is preparing for whatever may come, and I understand that you have no idea what may come. Could you give us a little bit of insight, specific examples on how you are preparing?
So I think we have a multiple of issues, obviously, above and beyond just immigration. We're looking at impact of federal grant dollars that we have across all of our city departments. We have something like the Colfax Bus Rapid Transit Project, which is a federally funded project. If somehow the president were to cut funding for transportation projects, what would that mean for us? What would it mean if we were really going to have to try to have an effort to pull fluoride out of all of our water systems, if that's something that Robert Kennedy is serious about? Those all have real implications on how we think about going about doing the work. If we have electric vehicles that are receiving tax credits that suddenly disappear while we're trying to electrify the city and reduce our climate impact. So in every department, we think if you take the president at his word, there are things for us to consider and prepare for. And so we're trying to be thoughtful to do that across every potential agenda item he's laid out, not knowing which ones he'll carry out and which ones he won't.
Back to immigration, have you met with people like Denver Police Chief Ron Thomas about this?
We've talked to all of our cabinet about it, and we're working on a meeting with the safety team this afternoon on this and other topics, and so we'll be prepared for this the same way we were prepared for election night. We were prepared for any potential civil unrest that could happen, so we'll be in touch with those teams about options. We're also talking to our city attorney and talking to all of our legal partners, both here and around the country, because we think this raises some really complicated legal questions, which I think the country would have a hot debate about if you really had the military deployed on streets in times without any war activity, without any evident threat to the country by people without criminal records. We think that's a real legal crisis for the country.
Does Chief Thomas support the plan to potentially, I know you're not planning on it, but to potentially use DPD officers to go up against federal forces?
Yeah, we've not built a plan to do that. I've not asked him about that, nor have I asked him to opine on or support it. I think our goal is to build all of the preventive measures we can to be ready and believe that those will suffice in a country of reasonable people who want not to head into that kind of conflict.
I know I'm asking you this similar questions over and over again, but I'm trying to get as specific examples as possible. And I know that these are hypothetical situations because nobody knows what's going to happen in January once President Trump is inaugurated. But let's take him for his word, as you have said you are. and federal forces or National Guardsmen from other states show up on Denver's doorstep in January, what does Denver's response look like?
That is actually the plan we have to build. And so I'm honest in telling you we haven't built that plan yet. We will have one before the inauguration, and we'll be prepared for whatever might come. I think what we're starting now is that hard conversation with all of the stakeholders that need to be involved. But I think we want that response to be peaceful. We want it to be nonviolent. We want it to be focused on upholding American values, which are treat people fairly. And all of these folks are in removal proceedings. Anyone that has arrived in the city and county of Denver has a court date. And they have a court date where the American government will decide whether their asylum claim is legitimate or not, and they will deport them if it's not. They will allow them to stay if it is. What we ought to be focusing on is how do we make those proceedings happen faster. Right now, it's a 7-year wait for someone to go through that process.
But I'm sure you have something in your mind. What does day one look like? How do you say, oh my gosh, it's coming here? Yeah. What does that look like?
Again, I think we won't know what that looks like until we know what is coming here. If there are 10 ICE agents who come into the city and county building and want to have a conversation about how to focus on highly violent criminals, that's a collaboration we could have. If there are tanks rolling down Colfax, that would be a very different scenario and not one that I imagine any of us want to see. But I think if that happens, you would have a lot of Denverites who are very upset about it, even more so than I would be.
You'd be out there protesting as well?
We would be. I just don't think that is the America we want to live in, nor do I think any Denverite voted for that.
Wrapping up now, President Trump has said that he will start these deportations in Aurora. Operation Aurora is what he said. Again, taking him for his word. Do you worry or do you foresee as the mayor of Denver that this will be centered right here in your hometown?
I think there is a real chance that we are the first test case of this national strategy, and I think that's why we want people to be aware that we're taking it seriously. We have people in the city who are terrified. We have folks who are on work permits legally, who are dreamers, who work in this city, who are coming to their supervisors and saying, do I need to worry about hiding? And so that is a fair concern that exists. And we have folks who are saying, why would we want Denver to be the center of some sort of major conflict with the federal government? So that's where I think we have to take him at his word that he said he plans to come here first. I don't know what Mayor Kaufman's plans are for Aurora or how he would approach that. But we think we have to be prepared for that possibility, and our job is to make sure we can do everything we can to keep all the residents safe, and that's what we'll focus on.
Mayor Johnston, anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I just would say that there are presidential elections have consequence. People vote on a number of issues, and the president gets to put forward an agenda. I think that there is also still a place for people to say, we have shared values that are deeper than any one policy issue, and that is, do you want to be a part of a chapter of American history that you will be embarrassed to have witnessed, or a part of a chapter that you will be proud to have written, right? And I think that this will be a real challenge. How we handle it will tell the story of what we're telling to our kids 25 or 50 years from now. I do not want to be the generation that feels ashamed to tell the story of what happened with the internment of Japanese Americans. We have the Ralph Carr Justice Centers named after Ralph Carr for that reason. I think Denverites want to be proud of this chapter that they write, and we intend to be.
Mayor, appreciate it.
Thanks
Always
so
a
much.
pleasure.